Okay, I'm recording now, and let's see. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Boo bitches! Welcome to episode 107 of C3 Crystals, Cauldrons, and Cocktails. I'm River,
And I'm Ren.
and today we're going to talk about Friday the 13th. This one
Ooh,
was Ren's
ooh,
idea. Yeah, she is
yes.
obsessed with Friday the 13th, and this episode is out on Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th,
Happy
everybody.
Friday the 13th. Go and have a good day. No, I'm obsessed with Friday the 13th and the idea that you can go and get $13 tattoos, whether they're good tattoos or not, I
I
don't
was
know, but
wondering if you were going to bring that up.
I am, and I did because I would love one. I would love one.
Hmm.
But I just, I'm scared.
Why?
I don't know because I don't want something that I'm going to look back on my arm or on my leg or whatever and be like, that was $13 and that was a terrible idea.
Well, I mean, sometimes they've got like witchy things and stuff that you
I
could
I
choose
saw
from.
one. It's the most dumb thing. I saw one. It's a light bulb.
A light bulb.
I want a light bulb.
All right, then you go to that.
But it has no significant meaning, just that it's a fun little
You
thing.
don't have to have significant meanings for
I
tattoos.
understand that. And I mean, I feel like all of mine have some significance, and a light bulb would just be super funny. And I want to have one of those arms that's like patchwork sleeve.
Hmm.
And
I would
I
love that.
I
Yeah.
have one. I have one on my arm currently. And so that one, if I were to get a Friday the 13th tattoo, it would be on my arm to be a part of that patchwork look,
Okay.
and it
Okay.
would be something so stupid. But since I only have one currently, and that one's
Hmm.
very significant, it's my dog.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that one's very significant. And then if you look at my arm, it's only going to be two tattoos, one that's super significant, and then a light bulb. So I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know either. But
Um,
before
but
we
yeah,
get into talking about Friday the 13th, what are we drinking?
yes.
So we're into the fall stuff. So we're calling this one the Bonfire Breeze. It's
Ooh.
yeah, it's got gin, orange juice, pomegranate juice, honey, and thyme. It's very folly and is perfect for sipping around a bonfire.
The time kind of throws me off a little bit.
Hmm. Well, I wanted to throw some kind of herb in there, and that one I think goes pretty
Yeah.
well with gin.
There was a really good joke I could have said right there, but I didn't choose to.
About thyme,
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
don't, you know.
But so let's talk Friday the 13th.
Yes, I'm super excited.
Hmm.
So, Friday the 13th is a superstition that revolves around the belief that Friday is an unlucky day, but specifically Friday the 13th is the unlucky day.
Hmm. Did you know that Friday the 13th happens at least once every year, but it can happen up to three times a year? So like this year we'll have two. We've got one January 13th and then today, October 13th. And then next year we won't have a Friday the 13th until September. It'll be September
Aw.
13th and December 13th next year.
Ooh. See, that baffles me. Because you never look at your calendar and you're like, oh, there's a Friday the 13th this year. You're just like, oh, when's the next Friday the 13th? Or
Hmm.
maybe you don't even think about it. And
Hmm.
it's something I think about a lot. And so this is the last one until literally like a year from now.
Hmm.
So
Isn't
you
that
better
crazy?
get your Friday the 13th on today. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting a year.
Definitely.
But this superstition has deep historical and cultural roots, which I found super interesting. And it's often considered a day of bad luck where people may feel more cautious or avoid certain activities. So, some things that led to the significance and origins of it, like let's say
Hmm.
historical origins.
Okay.
So there were superstitions around Friday the 13th being, and it's a complex and fascinating journey that we're about to go on.
Hmm.
So it combines elements from various cultures and traditions. And let's start with the biblical origins.
Yes.
So, one of the earliest influences on the superstition is the Last Supper, a
Mm-hmm.
significant event in Christianity where Jesus dined with his 12 disciples on the evening before his crucifixion, where
Mm-hmm.
Judas, I'm gonna Iscariot,
Yeah, I don't know. I just everybody knows Judas, so I just
Judas, okay,
mm-hmm.
who betrayed Jesus and is often referred to as the 13th guest at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, this association with betrayal and death has contributed to the negative views of the number 13th since he was the 13th guest.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the folk tales or whatever you want to call it that leads to the number 13 being considered bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you look about the number 13 is they talk about Judas and the 13th, the final supper, the last supper and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily a Friday the 13th, but I think in history I think he actually was crucified on a Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because I mean, I don't really know much about biblical aspects of much
Mhm.
except for what I know was taken or, redone for the sake of,
From pagan.
integrating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but other than that, like I've never sat down and read the Bible. I've never studied it. Never,
Mhm.
the only things that I know are based off social media and some small things
Mhm.
here and there. So it was
Mhm.
very interesting to start with that
Mhm.
understanding of the number 13. And then as we get into Norse mythology, there is a story known as the Banquet of the 12 Gods.
Mhm.
So, where banquet is held in Valhalla, attended by 12 gods, Loki, the trickster god, crashes the event as the 13th guest and brings chaos and destruction, ultimately leading to the death of Balder, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, Balder, a beloved god. This story's influence on superstition is evident in the negative connotations associated with the number 13 and its potential for bringing disaster.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that it's similar to the Last Supper story.
Mm-hmm.
That there's the duology between the different cultures and the different religions. But yeah, that at that dinner party, Loki arranged for Hoder, who was the blind god of darkness, to shoot Balder, who was the beautiful god of joy. Now, Odin loved Balder very much, and so he had to make sure that all living and dead things, he made them all promise not to hurt Balder, but he forgot the mistletoe. So Loki dipped one of Hoder's arrows in the mistletoe and then convinced him to shoot it at Balder. And
Mm-hmm.
then Balder died and the earth turned dark. And from then on, 13 was considered an unlucky number.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I love Norse mythology. And so being able to talk about this and everything and it's funny because I love Norse mythology so much and I can pronounce a lot of their words properly.
Oh, wow. Not
I,
me.
I love it so much and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can." But
Hmm.
anything else I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to let it be." But now let's talk about the like numerology significance.
Hmm.
So numerology is the study of mystical significances and numbers. So
Hmm.
this has played a role in the shaping of the superstition around 13. So in
Hmm.
various cultures the number 12 is associated with completeness, where we have 12 months in a year, 12 signs of zodiac, etc. And the number 13 is seen as is disrupting that harmony.
Yeah.
So the irregularity of 13 may have contributed to, its reputation of being that unlucky number. But I think it's
Yeah.
super interesting to think about. We were supposed to have 13 months or something like that
Our
before
calendar.
numbers.
Well, there's
Yeah.
13 lunar cycles,
Yes.
and a woman has 13 periods in a year. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And there's supposed to be 13 zodiac signs.
I came across that too, but I didn't read it to see what it said.
It was
But
very interesting. It goes
I like,
along the lines of we were supposed to have 13 months, there's 13 lunar cycles, and
mm-hmm,
so there's a 13th zodiac. But if we were to incorporate it into our modern day understanding of zodiac, it would throw everything off whack,
yeah,
basically. So they just
that makes
decided not
sense.
to.
Well, I love how you put that the irregularity of 13 might have contributed to it being seen as unlucky, because somewhere when I was reading for this, I came across a statement. It was a quote from somebody, and I don't know who it was. I didn't write it down, but he said 13, it's just beyond that perfect number of 12, and so it becomes squirmy. He called it squirmy.
That's
And
very, it's a,
I
that's a
I kind
odd,
of like it. I know.
it
13 is
kind
a
of makes
squirmy number.
sense. It makes sense.
But in numerology, 13 is associated with change and transition, which is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And things like the baker's dozen, which is 13, I always consider that lucky because you get an extra
You get an
roll
extra
or an
one.
extra
Mm-hmm.
egg or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. You get a baker's dozen. So not everything is bad about 13. But
It's
anyway,
very true. Um, I don't know. I don't see 13 as a terrible number or anything like that. I mean, but let's just say my our day has not gone on yet, so maybe I'll come back in the next episode and be like, "Okay, listen, this is what happened to me on the
have you
13th."
ever had a bad Friday the 13th?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, I
Maybe,
can't
maybe
think
in
of
my
either.
head when I was younger, I was like, oh, it's Friday the 13th, so I'm gonna have a terrible day. And then thus, I had
You
that
had a terrible
attitude and then I
day.
had it that,
Yeah.
you know, but that wasn't because of the day. It was because of my attitude towards,
Mm-hmm.
this, not this, I guess, stereotypes around what Friday the
Mm-hmm.
13th is
Mm-hmm.
to people who don't really look into it. They're like, oh, yeah, it's bad luck, but they don't really know why or,
Why? Yeah.
consider
Mm-hmm.
anything else. So, some historical events, more historical events like the arrest of the Knights Templar.
Yes, I
So,
heard of that one.
on Friday, October 13th, come much like
Wow.
today,
Mm-hmm.
in 1307, I did not do the math to be like, oh, that was blah, blah, blah years ago. I'm not like that.
Long,
So
long time
long,
ago.
long time ago, King Philip the, what would you
Fourth.
say, fourth of
Mm-hmm.
France ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar, a powerful and wealthy medieval Christian military order. This event is often cited as a source of superstition as it brought about the downfall of a respected and influential organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like started that downward spiral in that
Yep.
that era. And
Yep.
so therefore Friday that 13th was seen as bad. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why was it Friday the 13th specifically instead of just every 13th of every month or
Yeah, I don't know.
so Friday the 13th? And maybe, well, I would say maybe Friday the 13th because it doesn't happen as often. But like how often does a 13th on a Thursday happen? Like we don't
I know.
we don't
I
track
think
that.
in Italy, it's the 19th or the 17th, one of those two dates that's bad luck. The 13th is just any other day.
Mm. Oh,
Isn't that
that's
weird?
cool. Yeah, I like
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, every place has their own history. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we have the crash of the Uruguayan,
Uruguayan. Mm-hmm.
Uruguayan, yep, Air
Mm-hmm.
Force Flight 571. So the plane crash has inspired the book and movie Alive, which occurred on Friday, October 13th in
Wow.
1972. So in the Andes Mountains, this all happened. Okay. So the survivors of the crash resorted to extreme measures to stay alive, which added to the, terrible feeling around this
Mm-hmm.
tragedy on this specific date.
Okay. I have to say, I love how politically correct you are. That they had to resort to extreme measures. Yeah, they ate each other.
Yeah,
That
I
was
didn't.
such a nice way of putting that. They had to resort to extreme measures. And I'm like, yeah, they fricking ate each other to stay alive. But I didn't
Well,
have any idea that it was on Friday the 13th. Honestly, I didn't know that.
it's one thing to let people imagine what could happen.
I don't know. Eating
Yes.
is worse. I think saying those words is worse than the imagination. I don't
Y-
know.
Yeah, I think it was someone, I don't know who I have this discussion with. Maybe it was you, where eating people is legal in some places under extreme measures like this.
Oh
Like
wow.
cannibalism is legalized under certain,
For survival.
yeah, under certain, I think it was.
It might have been me because I remember we had a conversation about cannibalism when we were talking about what are those creatures that we did an episode on that started with cannibalism. And a scratch can turn you. They're not werewolves.
Oh, Wendigos.
Wendigos, yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they supposedly started from being, it was
Cannibals.
cannibals that started it. And I
Hmm.
think you told me then
Hmm.
that was
Okay.
a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So,
you could do it legally if you had to.
yeah, if you had to,
But I
or
think on that crash, I'm not sure. I
I
can't
think
remember if they actually killed people, like drew straws and killed people to eat them, or if they just ate the ones that had died because they died in the crash.
I think they started out by eating the ones who had died in the crash,
And then they actually
and
killed
then
people to eat
they
them.
went to extreme measures to stay alive.
Yes.
But anyways, in cultural evolution. So, all of our societies have evolved, all of our cultures have evolved. So, what happened to Friday the 13th as we evolved? So,
Hmm.
it's continued, it's passed down through our generations where some things have been lost, but this stigma around Friday the 13th has remained. So, literature, folklore, urban legends, all contributed to this, extension of what Friday the 13th is. So the
Hmm.
spread of this superstition was amplified in the 20th and 21st centuries through media, including like movies, TV, internet, especially now, internet,
Podcasting, because we're doing an episode
podcasting.
on it.
Friday the 13th is bad. Boo. No, I'm just kidding.
Boo.
It's
Yeah.
actually
No, actually for witches, it's a
it's
little
how you,
holiday.
yeah, and it's how you perceive it, I want to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
So, while Friday the 13th is often viewed as unlucky in Western cultures, some cultures have different perspectives. In Spanish speaking countries and in Greece, Tuesday the 13th is considered unlucky. And this is where you came in with in
Oh yeah.
Italy, Friday the 17th is regarded as a day of bad luck.
The
So,
17th. Okay.
so, in Greece, you have the 13th, Tuesday, the 13th, specifically, there's a Tuesdays are unlucky. And then in Italy, Friday, the 17th are unlucky.
Hmm.
So every culture and in every place, it's very different. But overall, the superstition surrounding Friday the 13th is, accumulation of historical events, cultural beliefs, and various influences that have contributed to its widespread recognition as a day associated with bad luck and caution. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I actually came up with some more things that happened on the 13th, or maybe the Friday the 13th. But did you know, since the 14th century, Friday itself, not necessarily the 13th on Friday, has
Mhm.
been considered an unlucky day because of some bad things. So
Hmm.
Jesus was crucified on a Friday, and it was a Friday the 13th. And Eve tempted Adam with the apple on a Friday, supposedly.
Oh,
Abel was slain by Cain on a Friday, and that supposedly was Friday the 13th. The great floods that Noah built the ark for began on a Friday. The whole deal with the Tower of Babel also supposedly happened on a Friday. In Rome, Fridays was execution day. And in Britain, people were hanged on Fridays. So it was known as Hangman's Day in Britain when they
wow.
hung the criminals.
Everyone was having fun on Fridays.
Right? Fridays and the 13th.
Wow. That's very cool. I didn't know that about Fridays
Hmm.
specifically. Hmm,
Yeah.
I like that. So let's get into a little bit of folklore.
Yeah. Let's do.
So, folklore surrounding Friday the 13th is rich and varied, often containing tales of bad luck, omens, and cautionary lessons.
Hmm.
While specific stories may vary depending on cultural backgrounds and local traditions, there are a couple of few ones that are pretty some good.
Pretty some
Pretty
good.
some good, pretty
Tell us
good.
some pretty some good ones.
So, the haunting of a ghost ship. That I think this one's one of my favorites. I don't know. I
Okay.
love them all. So, One very well-known piece of maritime folklore involves a
Hmm.
ghost ship known as the Flying Dutchman.
Oh, I've heard of the Flying Dutchman.
The Flying
Okay.
Dutchman is in SpongeBob.
Maybe that's why I've heard of it.
hmm So the legend tells of a captain who, on a fateful Friday the 13th, cursed himself and his ship to sail the seas forever as a ghostly vessel, never able to make port. The ship is said to appear as an omen of doom to sailors who spot it.
Ooh.
Now, I'd really tried, I don't want to say really tried, but I really tried to find like how they got cursed on a Friday the 13th, but I couldn't
Like,
really,
did they
nothing,
drown or did their
nothing was
ship
really like
sink?
clear. Like it was
Hmm.
like, it just said they were cursed. He cursed himself and his ship, but I was like, how? I don't know. So, but
Hmm.
I think that's really cool. But I do like, I have heard of the, if another ship or sailor spot it, that brings doom to
To
that
them or
ship.
their
Mhm.
ship. Yeah.
And so, does that still occur today? Because, we have people on the ocean and trading and ships going in and out of port all the time from all over the world. So,
I don't know.
does it
I would
still?
have to do some research to see ghostly sightings on the sea.
Oh, that would be a
That would be
good one.
fun. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then you have the and this one is interesting. So we have how we talked about earlier with the 13 at a dinner table,
Hmm.
right? And we had the Norse and the, the,
Christian,
yeah, what is it called? The supper,
biblical, the Last Supper.
the
Yeah.
Last Supper. And so I was reading a whole ton of things in superstitions where you never invite 13 people to a dinner party.
Hmm.
And if there are 13 people, something bad will happen in that evening or that day. So there was a podcast that I used to listen to, and it was called Superstitions.
Oh, fun.
Super, super good. I think they like stopped doing it now. I don't know. But they would take superstitions and they would turn them into stories. And
Oh,
so one of them was
wow.
on Friday the 13th or about the number 13. I can't remember
Okay.
specifically, but I do remember it's basically a curse of 13 at a dinner table. So if you have a 13th guest or anything like that, there's going to be some problems in that night.
Yeah, somewhere later, but I suppose I could talk about it now. Let me see if I can find it. Franklin Roosevelt was very afraid of the number 13, and he
Oh,
did everything he could to avoid it. He would never eat at a table with 13 people. And if he was invited to a dinner party where there were 13 guests, he would invite his secretary to join them because he wouldn't allow it to be just 13.
okay. Okay, yeah. Because there is something to be said about having 13 people at a dinner table. I mean, we have those two stories above, and we could probably have,
Hmm.
I say above or before, whatever
Hmm.
it may be. But now there's some baking woes of Friday the 13th.
Okay.
So in some cultures, there's a belief that baking bread or pastries, kind of like how you were saying,
Yeah.
on Friday the 13th could lead to disaster.
Interesting.
So,
I've never heard
stories of
this.
dough not rising, food spoiling, or the result of baked goods being cursed have been contributed to this, Friday the 13th.
Superstition.
And so I
Interesting.
wonder where the baker's dozen of 13 comes in with like is it bad luck or is it like bad luck to only make 12? You need to have 13.
Well, I think there was a legitimate reason for a baker's dozen because often, like if you were selling eggs, and often one of them would be cracked. So the baker's dozen made sure that you really did have a dozen. It was the same with the loaf of bread. You might burn one.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so having that extra made sure that you had that number 12.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
this one was just super funny to me because I love to bake and I love all of these things. And so the in where I got this from, it was like it could lead to disaster, stories of dough not rising. And I just thought it was hilarious because I was like, that
What
is
a
a disaster, but like
disaster
it's just funny because of the other stories that we have in here. It's like
with
they
people
ate
eating
people.
people.
Yeah, they were eating themselves, and then this one's disaster. The dough doesn't rise. I thought it was hilarious. Um,
God.
and then mirrors and reflections also, how mirrors are associated
Yeah.
with some bad luck. So the folklore surrounding mirrors is often associated with the bad luck of Friday the 13th. So some believe that breaking a mirror on this day can bring 7 years of bad luck. And additionally, looking into a mirror at midnight on Friday the 13th is thought to reveal visions of the future or of spirits.
That's
So
interesting.
it's interesting because I looked more into it because everybody says if you break a mirror, like just on any day, you get
Yeah, that's
seven
what I
years of
always
bad
heard.
luck. But it's on if you break it on Friday the 13th.
Interesting.
And
I
so
always thought it was any day.
yeah, it was very interesting. And now that could be a Mandela effect type of thing where it's like,
That's
no,
true.
it's if you break it in general. And there's people who are like, no, it's if you break it on Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I have always heard if you just break a mirror in general.
Me too.
But this one, I mean, anywhere I looked, it was like, yeah,
On Friday the
if you
13th.
break it in general, like you just have a broken mirror, but you get bad luck if you break it on Friday the 13th.
Did you
So,
know that cutting your hair on a Friday the 13th is supposed to cause a death in your family?
oh God.
I know. I don't know where that one came from, but it
What's
must have
funny is
happened.
I was thinking about trimming my hair earlier.
Maybe not do that today.
Yeah, maybe let's not and say we did. And in certain cultures, Friday the 13th is believed to be a time when supernatural or malevolent entities are more active. So people might take extra precautions to protect themselves from unwanted visitors or paranormal experiences during this time. Now, I
Hmm.
will say, based on our last episode, since we are October 13th, you can have a
Mhm.
pumpkin outside, and maybe that would help with
That's
said
true.
paranormal activity.
That's
Um,
true.
and now I don't know the understanding behind Friday the 13th because the veil isn't thin. We're not in
Yeah.
any sort
It's not
of,
a liminal time.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
I don't know
Hmm.
about that, but it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So across various cultures, there's a common theme. And I think we can all understand what that theme is of
Mm-hmm.
avoiding
Certain things. Yeah.
activities,
Mm-hmm.
travel, anything. Like don't get on an airplane. I mean you're probably going to
Mm-hmm.
be fine. You're going to be fine. But a lot of people avoid traveling and doing
Mm-hmm.
all of that on Friday the 13th or moving houses or starting a new project or doing anything risky on
Hmm.
these days because it's perceived as you're going to have bad luck. So if you take a risk, it's going to quote unquote fail on this day because it's the bad luck day. It's the unlucky day.
That's interesting.
So
Okay.
people avoid certain activities on this day.
Okay.
And then kind of a little bit more into the cultural impact where the superstition has been heavily integrated into movies and all of that. We have one of those well-known examples of Friday the 13th, the horror film franchise,
Yes.
which
Yes.
began in a 1980s movie with the same name,
I
of
haven't
Friday
seen
the
those.
13th. Um,
I'm gonna have
I
to watch
I've
them.
seen them once.
Hmm.
I've seen them once. And I will say that the times that it came out, it was all the rage. It was scary, probably
Mm-hmm.
terrifying because nothing like this had been out before, really.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're very desensitized with what's on film nowadays.
So
And
it's not
so
scary
yeah,
now.
no, it's definitely not scary. It's kind of cheesy.
Oh, well,
But they're
that's like
classics.
the Blair Witch Project. When I saw that when it first came out, it terrified me because it was the
Mm-hmm.
first time it was that found footage.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I love those types of films.
and now they're everywhere. There's always found footage type
Mm-hmm.
movies, but
Mm-hmm.
that was the first one I remember seeing, and it
So
it was
good.
scary to me.
It was
Yeah.
scary. It was terrifying. But now when you watch it, you're just kind of like, meh.
Mm,
Now, I will say, I'm always like looking at my husband. I'm like, why can nobody make a good scary movie that actually scares anybody or me
mm-hmm.
nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably because I'm desensitized to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, oh, pff, whatever. That's just a man in a costume.
Yeah, I mean they get me with the jump scares, and graphics are getting better and better.
They are, but I mean, I feel like we haven't seen like a genuinely terrifying movie in a long time.
The Conjuring movies.
The Conjuring movies, okay, the Conjuring movies are scary and
Mm-hmm.
they're very well made, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to keep me up at night.
Oh, you told me what was the one that scared you so bad?
The fourth kind.
The fourth kind.
Now,
That was like an alien one or
it
something, wasn't
was,
it?
let me preface, it was based on a quote, true story, and they had like
Ah,
actors playing a version of what the quote, real person was portraying. Like this was real, quote, like real footage and all of that.
okay, okay.
And it wasn't, it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But they portrayed it like that. And I watched it when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because my dad had seen it before, and he's the type of person that would stay up in the middle of the night and watch these movies. But he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually pretty tired. I'm going to go to bed. So he left me, 12 years old, there to watch it all by myself in the middle of the night. And it scared the crap out of me. And I will watch scary movies over and over and over again. This is one I have not seen since.
Yeah, I don't
So
remember when I watched it. I don't think it was at night. I don't know when it was. I don't remember when it came out.
it
So
was terrifying to me. That was one of the ones that scared me. Now, I mean, if they make another one like that, it probably won't scare me anymore.
yeah, right.
So, anyways, but yeah, we have the in popular culture, we've made whole movies about this
Mm-hmm.
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there's various perspectives, how we've talked about, where many people believe in this superstition while others consider it to be, baseless. We have the
Right.
skeptics that argue that it's
Mm-hmm.
just any other day on the calendar and it does not contribute to bad luck, or it's irrational to think like that. And I would say yes and no, because the number 13 is seen as, uncomfortable or
It's an odd number. It's
squirmy,
squirmy.
whatever it may be, but it's also just another day where you hold your fate in your own hands with how you want your day to
Yeah. I
go.
mean, I still have to work, so I'm working
Yeah.
around this podcast.
But
So
I will say, the other day, my husband and I went grocery shopping and everything was just going so bad that day. It was one thing after another. And we go grocery shopping, we go to whole warehouse, like Sam's and
mm-hmm.
Costco and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went and we grabbed everything that we needed and we checked out. And we picked up bread that said it was on sale, but it didn't scan like it was on sale. And so that was just another thing. And then we get to the car. I'm putting the eggs into the back of the car. My husband goes, "There's an egg missing."
Oh
There
no.
was a whole egg missing out of the whole carton. And we didn't realize it until we
See,
had paid and
if you had
everything.
had the baker's dozen eggs, you would have still ended up with 12.
That's fine, but who steals a freaking egg?
I know that is very weird.
It's odd. And so an egg was missing, and it was just like that was like our last straw. We were done with the day and all of that. So, and it was a carton of like 32 eggs. So we got
Oh,
31 eggs.
it wasn't the baker's dozen
No,
thing
it wasn't
anyway,
like
but
12, but it was like so I understand there are mishaps and it's easy to blame it
to say,
on
oh, it's
it's Friday the
because
13th or
yeah, yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is. But I mean, sometimes, and that was just like a random Tuesday or whatever, so it
yeah.
wasn't any, or maybe it could have been Tuesday. When was this? Tuesday the 17th? What was it? What's the Italian?
It was the 17th, but we're on
Tuesday in Greece. It's Tuesday the 13th.
oh, that's funny.
It was nowhere
Yeah.
near the 13th, but it's just funny to think about stuff like that and then to blame it on a day and then have a whole
Hmm.
superstition around it when you're just having a bad day.
And it's pretty ingrained in
It
our
is. It very much is.
culture.
Where we have like
I
sales
mean,
on
everybody
tattoos and we
knows.
have,
Yeah.
things that go on Friday the
I mean,
13th and people
did
don't
you
travel and
did you
yeah,
know that there are many hotels, and I think you know this because we've talked about it before, hotels, tall buildings, etc., that don't have a 13th floor. And some
Mm.
leave out the room numbers that have 13 in them, like 113, 213. They just
Oh
don't have
yeah, they do. Oh,
those rooms.
and the freaking hotels that just don't have they take off the 13th floor.
Yeah, there is no,
And I'm
they
like, so they
just,
call it like the 14th floor, whatever it
but it's
is, but it's
really
like
the
it's really
13th.
the 13th. So there's nothing, just taking out the number doesn't mean that it's not the
It's
13th
not
floor.
13 because I can count, but also there are cities that don't have a 13th Street or a 13th Avenue.
Oh.
That's how ingrained it is in our society.
I didn't take it as far as like not having like a street named 13th
Yeah.
Street.
Isn't that
You
funny?
know, that's true. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh yeah, it's on 13th Street." Never.
Hmm. Well,
Interesting.
and I don't know if there are some that have them. I just know that there are some that don't.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
But I've never heard of somebody say, like I'm thinking of New York. Like, does New York have one, like a
I
13th
don't
Street?
know. I don't know.
Interesting. Huh. But then, like,
Hmm.
off of that, like businesses and marketers, like they use the superstitions surrounding Friday the 13th and they offer discounts and sales and promotions and themed events and all of that.
I
And so,
I use it as a reason to drink. Yeah.
okay. I mean, all of these things, even drinking, has lightened the mood around the superstition to where I think some people might take it seriously. Some people might just like play into this gimmick or like this whole
Hmm.
theatrics of Friday the 13th, where like people see it as an opportunity to launch products and sales and make money
Hmm.
or whatever it may be because it's related to this theme and
Hmm.
people buy into it. It's like I love it. I
I
love
mean,
the idea of Friday the
if
13th. It's so cool to me.
if I were making horror movies, I would try to get it to come out on a
Yeah,
Friday the
release
13th,
it
you
on a
know?
Friday the
Yeah,
13th. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's I would do anything like that. Like Friday the 13th, play into it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Did
I
you know?
yeah.
I have a did you know? Do you want me
Okay.
to do that?
Yes.
Taylor Swift, speaking of pop culture and
Okay.
modern day,
Okay.
she thinks of 13 as her lucky number, which if you've seen that commercial with her and there's a whole bunch of her, I don't know. Anyway, she has a 13 on her hand and that kind of thing. But she thinks of 13 as being a lucky number. And she has some connections with Friday the 13th. She said she was born on the 13th. She turned 13 on Friday the 13th, and her first album went gold in 13 weeks.
Oh, that's cool.
So those are all good things for her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I never knew that about her. I
I
don't
just
really
love
know much
her.
about Taylor Swift anyways.
I love her music. I honestly, I do. I know it's not, I mean, here I like grunge rock and roll too, but you gotta love Taylor Swift. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ren is making a face at me. I
No,
don't
I'm right
know.
there with you. I don't really listen to music as much. I listen to a lot of
Hmm.
podcasts, and so sure
Ah,
I'll listen. Like I understand the hype. You know, her whole
mm-hmm.
concert came out, everybody wanted to
She's
go.
amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm very indifferent, but you know my opinion on obsessing over actors and everything.
Well, that's true.
They're just other
Yeah, I
people.
mean, I wouldn't go to see her in concert because I don't like crowds that much,
Yeah.
but I think I love her music. I think she's a really cool person. Her
Mm-hmm.
ability to write and sing is off
Oh
the
yeah,
charts.
that's
So,
true. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm not like obsessed with her and I would never go see her in concert just because it makes me uncomfortable to be in that much of a crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, that's valid. And then off of Friday the 13th with the travel industry,
Hmm.
I know we talked about where people avoid traveling and booking flights on Friday the 13th due to the
Yeah.
superstition, but it's a phenomena known as, I'm going to try my best, triskaidekaphobia.
Wow, that's a
It's an
mouthful.
actual phobia
To
that
fly
people
or to
have
travel
to
on Friday the
travel on
13th.
Friday the 13th. And so this can lead to like a lower demand for services. Wow, sources, travel services on these dates. So in my head, I'm like, is it cheaper to travel
That's what I
on
was
Friday
just
the
thinking.
13th? Like,
Are there some
so
good deals?
yeah,
Maybe we should look
maybe
into
there's
that.
some good deals. But so today, of all days, is probably the time where less people are traveling
That's
because
so
of this
interesting.
phobia. And
Hmm.
then there is a small positive spin where some individuals and groups have attempted to challenge the negative connotations with Friday the 13th, where some
Hmm.
people view it as an opportunity to face fears, try new things, or promote positive events. Additionally, some organizations use Friday the 13th to raise awareness for charitable causes or community like interactive
Yeah,
events.
I think Finland actually has they named Friday the 13th as a day of it's to promote awareness of accidents.
Oh,
And so they're using that connotation of, oh, it's bad luck, you could get hurt, to promote awareness of accidents and help people learn how to first aid and promote
yeah.
awareness of what you look for and how to handle situations like that. So I
That's a
thought that was
very good idea.
pretty cool.
That's a
But
very good idea.
speaking of trying to put a positive spin on it,
Hmm.
you told me a little bit about this guy, and I have some information, and I think you've got more. But did
Okay.
you know, in the late 19th century, a New Yorker named Captain William Fowler, he was born in 1827 and he died in 1897.
Hmm.
He was trying to remove that stigma around the number 13. So, and particularly that dinner rule about not having 13 guests.
Hmm.
So he founded this exclusive society called the 13 Club. And
Hmm.
this group would meet and dine regularly on the 13th day of the month in the room number 13 of the Knickerbocker Cottage, which was a popular watering hole that he owned. And then before sitting down for a 13-course dinner, members would pass beneath a ladder. So they're
Oh
throwing
gosh.
all the bad luck stuff in
Everything
there,
in there.
and a banner reading, and this is Latin, so I don't know about the pronunciation, but Morituri te salutamus, which is Latin for those of us who are about to die salute you.
Oh wow.
So
That's
they
kind of
totally
aggressive.
embraced it. And Teddy
The only th-
Roosevelt was
the
a
only
member
thing,
of this,
yeah, the only thing they're missing was like a black cat and
right? Maybe they had black cats with them at the
an
dinner.
upside down horseshoe above the door. That's all they're missing.
But you were telling me a story about him
Yeah, it was
and
very
this club.
interesting. It's not too much. I think you say more than what I do.
Oh, okay. Well, you were the one that got me
But
excited to learn
it
about
was
him.
a fun, like, did you know that you could have probably used?
Hmm.
Yes, but did you know that Friday the 13th was all started by one man? And so I
Okay.
don't know how well I believe that it was started by him because he was in the 19th century type of
Well,
thing, but the number
he
13 and everything goes
he
back.
tried to make it good connotations.
Yes. So Fowler, was your stereotypical superstitious 19th century man.
Okay.
He was transfixed by the number 13. So he attended, and I don't know what this is, like PS, like maybe some sort of concerts or whatever, but
Okay.
13 of those. He fought in 13 battles during the Civil War, built 13 structures in New York City, belonged to 13 secret clubs, and tried to coordinate all other significant events with the 13th date of each month.
That's so cool.
And so then one cold Friday the 13th in January 1882 at 8:13 p.m., Fowler rented out room 13 of Knickerbocker Cottage and made his personal obsession public. So,
So
this
that's
is
how the club
yes,
started.
this would
Okay.
be the first meeting of the 13th club. So, this event included 13 courses eaten under a banner reading what you said. And then what would happen was you would become it would become a regularly scheduled supper club that was held by him until his death in 1897. So he believed that 13 was not just a significant number in his life, but it was his own lucky number. And the
Hmm.
mysterious cult eventually dismantled, but the legacy of Friday the 13th lives on.
That
So,
is so cool.
I mean, it's not.
I mean, I
I
love
wouldn't
the
say he
idea.
started it. I wouldn't say he started
No,
it. No, but he
but
really built on it and he made this club. And if it was something as innocent as just dining with 13 people with 13 courses, then that sounds like a great time.
yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
Very cool.
And then um based off of that, we had, the phobia, the
Hmm.
tricks of, phobia to travel while it's Friday the 13th. There was in this like little blurb where Fowler loved the number 13 because it brought him like unexpected and unexplainable luck, where most people believe that the number is, haunted, evil, bad luck, blah blah blah. And so like the fear of Friday the 13th itself
Okay.
is Frigga trixodecaphobia.
Wow.
So, and then I
Why
have an
why do they have to be so hard to say?
they're so hard. So that the first one is trixodecaphobia, and this one's Frigga trixodecaphobia, however you
Why
want to
can't
say it.
why can't it just be 13 phobia?
I don't know. And then
13 phobia.
there's another term, a phobia term that refers to the fear of Friday the 13th, where it's parascovidecatriophobia. All the phobias.
Wow.
Um, where it's this one's also I think they're interchangeable. The Frigga and the
Yeah,
paraphobias are
I
like
think
basically interchangeable because it's the fear of the Friday the 13th, where I mean that's basically it. It's just like
yeah.
the
I
fear of the
mean, I
day and
think
the superstition that goes into it.
Frigga is the goddess of Fridays in Norse or something.
Yeah,
Nothing
we were
like that.
talking about this because we were like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a lot of phobias.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a lot of phobias.
So, I was thinking, I wonder if Friday the 13th is one of those tulpa phenomenon. Remember we did
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I love a
how,
good tulpa.
yeah, so many people believe it's a scary bad day that they manifest bad things happening, like the proverbial self-fulfilling prophecy.
Hmm.
I wonder if that's what it's all about, is that, if you wake up saying, oh God, it's Friday the 13th, something horrible is going to happen,
Yes.
then you're manifesting something horrible
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about witches and Friday the 13th,
Oh, yes.
because
That's why
for
we're all here.
witches, yes, for witches, 13 is a lucky number, especially Friday the 13th. Traditional
Woo.
covens have 13 members.
Hmm.
There are 13 lunar cycles in a year, like we were talking about, which is significant within witchcraft. The
Hmm.
moon is very important to a lot of us witches. Friday is ruled by Venus, which is the planet of love, harmony, and money. It is a good day for self-care, self-love, and to make some and for some great hedonism. It's all about you that on
Ooh,
Friday the
me,
13th.
myself, and I.
Absolutely. The three of us can have a great time. Wear green or pink, indulge in fruits and lovely scents and baths and naps. It's that hedonistic happy day for us witches. It's like an earthier Valentine's Day, except for it's Friday the 13th.
I like that though.
And then Fridays are also named after Freya, which is the Norse goddess. So
Hmm.
Frigga,
Hmm.
I don't remember who Frigga is, but Freya is the Norse goddess of love, beauty, sex, fertility, battle, and death. And she is not dissimilar from Venus, either the goddess or the planet, in a lot of her associations. So she's often depicted pulling a chariot riding in a chariot that's pulled by two kitty cats.
Oh, okay.
Also, in the tarot deck, the major arcana card number 13 is the death card, which represents change and transformation.
And that's what the number means.
13, yeah, the
Yes.
numerology
Yes. I was gonna
means
say
that
that
too.
earlier, but then it slipped my
Hmm.
mind. Yeah.
And it's these kind of correspondences that encourage us witches to celebrate Friday the 13th as a little witchy holiday, like a
Holiday.
holiday. Um, and then tomorrow, which is the 14th, is the new moon. So you can actually celebrate today's Friday the 13th by working shadow work, exploration, sensuality, consideration of change and transformation. Work with your familiars, have a bath in the dark, enjoy the company of dark crystals like obsidian, onyx, or jet, because
Ooh.
this Friday the 13th happens to be associated with the dark, new moon.
Yeah.
Um, but there are Friday the 13th that are on full moon. So when you come
Oh,
across a
yeah.
Friday the 13th, look at what moon phase it is and incorporate that into your uh, practice as well. And one more, did you know? Did you know that a large asteroid will fly by the Earth on Friday the 13th in 2029? It's going to be a large asteroid that will fly close enough to the Earth to be visible without a telescope in the Eastern Hemisphere. That's according to NASA.
That'll be cool.
And the asteroid's name is Apophis, and it will pass less than 20,000 miles from our planet's surface, which is
That's
super, super
that's
close.
very close.
Yeah. So any change in trajectory at all could be that might maybe the world will end on Friday the 13th in
Oh,
2029. I don't
don't say
know.
that. Don't you dare say that.
Let's not manifest that.
No.
But yeah, in 2029 that will be pretty cool to be able to see
That will be cool.
asteroid. Yeah.
Oh,
But that's all I've got. Did you have more?
no, that's all that I have. And
Okay.
again, I don't have an outro in front of me.
Me
So I'll do
neither.
my best. I'll do my
Okay.
best. So, again, that's all we have. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to see more, find all of our episodes, anything about us, you can go to www.c3witchypodcast.com. There you'll find links to our social media. That's Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, X, which is Twitter, and
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm missing one, Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
You can go to our YouTube and subscribe. We've been picking up on subscribers a little bit, so thank you. We
Mm-hmm.
love you guys. We feel like we neglect you sometimes. We're like, "Oh yeah, YouTube's a thing." Um, no, but we love any support that we can get. And then
Definitely.
we also have merch. So again, I think at this time we only have like 2-ish weeks left
Mm-hmm.
for you guys to get our exclusive like limited time merch. So to get that, you go to www.c3witchypodcastmerch.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, all I can say is get it now because they won't be back out. And the next season, we're going to have more new designs that are also
Yep.
limited time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also on our website, you can check out our Patreon and our Buzzsprout to see what they're all
Yes.
about. We have
Mm-hmm.
all the information that you would need there. You have basically everything on our website. So if you have any questions, you can also email us.
Yep.
And I
Yeah. Thank you guys for
That's it.
the
Yeah.
patrons and the buzz sprouter. Yeah, the
Yes.
buzz
Bus
sprouters for
Sprouters.
supporting us. We couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We are so happy.
Um, so
So I think
we'll
we'll be
be
back.
back. And until then, stay witchy.
Woo!